Hey, Justin Dyson here, Dyson Apiaries. Going to do a quick video today on how to put foundation in frames. We're going to do two different types. One is going to be crimped wire and one will be the plastic foundation. Plastic foundation is pretty simple actually. Also going to show you one other type of foundation here. So one type here is called a thin surplus. If you see, you can almost see through that foundation. I don't know if it'll show up that well on the video, but this is what you would use if you were doing cut comb or chunk honey. So the bees would draw out off that natural thin surplus foundation, and then you could slice it out of the frames and put it in the jars. So that's thin surplus. Then we have, this is crimped wire. This is crimped wire foundation with hooks. I always like to use the kind with the hooks, and I'll show you how that works here in a minute. But the crimped wire, it keeps you from having to do the crosswire. Most people now don't crosswire their frames. That kind of eliminates that process. And then we have the plastic type foundation. There's several different varieties of it. It's plastic with a wax coating on it. And this kind is really simple to put in. So what we'll do, let's do the plastic first because it's really quite easy. So with plastic foundation, you use a grooved bottom bar and a grooved top bar. There's no need to have the wedge. It's pretty simple. With this, most of these types have a little, it's perforated there so that you can break these corners out, and this allows the bees to move without going all the way around the frame. If you notice, like Duragilt foundation will have a hole down in the bottom, and if you ever notice with regular wax foundations, the bees will, a lot of times will chew out that corner so that they can cross over. But the plastic foundation is pretty simple. So I just like to stick the top in there, and then I just kind of pull up on that bottom bar, and we'll just roll it right in there. Boom. There we go. That frame's done. So that plastic foundation is really easy to put in. So that's the plastic. So the next one will be crimped wire. That's what we'll do, and the same process would be for the thin surplus. So I'm going to be using a grooved bottom bar and a wedge top bar. And with the wedge top, you have to cut that wedge out. A razor knife works really good. A pocket knife will work. You know, just kind of be careful. But we're just going to cut that little bit of edge that they leave in that saw cut, and then we're going to make sure that this right here is nice and cleaned out. We don't want to leave that little piece of wood there, so we want that to be smooth. On the remaining wedge, sometimes you end up with this little piece here. You can cut that off, or you can flip it over to where it doesn't interfere. So I'm going to turn this frame around in this orientation. I'm going to take this crimped wire foundation, and if we notice those hooks, those will end up wrapping around that wedge like so, and that just gives a little extra support from the foundation coming out like that. So for example, when we're slinging our honey out in an extractor, especially that first year, those hooks just provide a little more support as that frame is spinning around. So we're going to take this. I like to stand the frame up with the part with the wedge missing. I'll stand it up this way. Then I'm just going to grab this foundation here. I'm going to slip it into the groove in the bottom. Make sure that all of our little crimped wires there drop down in that groove. And then we're going to lay this frame back and slide that right down into that edge. So now we see that our hooks are right up against the top there. So then we take that, remember I said if you have that edge and you don't cut it off, we'll want to face that down like so. Now there's a couple different ways we can nail these wedges in. There's a couple schools of thought. One method is use a 7/8 inch nail, and I should have had my little tack hammer out. I have a full framing hammer here, but a 7/8 length nail, and we'll go in, come right over top here. We'll go in on kind of an angle like so, and we're gonna, when we do this, we're gonna pinch.
Down here.
When we do this, we're gonna pinch that wedge so that we really keep a tight fit, and we're going to drive that 7/8 inch nail back like that, and that makes a nice tight fit. Now if you'll notice, sometimes you get a little bow, and we'll discuss that here in a minute. So there's another method as well, and this would use a 3/4 of an inch long nail, and we'll go in from this orientation. This is the way a lot of people put their frames together. So we have that method as well. Now I just used a 7/8 nail there because I didn't have a 3/4 handy, but so it stuck into the table. But one advantage of this is that we can stick our hive tool in, and we can pop the wedge back out to take that foundation out and replace it later. It's a little more difficult going in this way, but I feel like you get a little stronger setup by going this way. And then one other method is by using a nail gun, and we can use a 7/8 of an inch narrow crown staple. And we'll just go in that same orientation, this direction. So we'll put the nail right there. And when we do that, we'd want to kind of pinch that together to make sure it's nice and tight. So that's 3 different nailing methods that we can use. 3/4 inch nail. As you see, I used a long nail just because I didn't have a 3/4 laying there. You could use a 3/4 nail there. The other method is a 7/8 that direction, or 7/8 narrow crown staple. We can use it that way. So a couple different methods there. Now, one additional thing, and you notice because I nailed it multiple ways and I didn't really pay attention, I ended up with a nice bow in my foundation that I'll have to fix. That's really common if we use a deep frame with crimped wire foundation. So one of the methods to fix that is to actually cross wire, and we'll put a metal wire similar to these crimped wires here, and it's melted into the wax across, up, and back across, and then tied off in a rivet on the end. And you would do that multiple times through a deep frame. If we had a deep frame with that type of foundation, you can see that you would go back and forth. I think it's 3 times you go back and forth on a deep frame. So in order to, with a deep frame especially, you end up with a lot of times you have a big bow and the frame's just not very sturdy. So you do the crimped wire, or you can use these little frame pins. I like to use these. They're pretty simple to use. This is called a frame pin. And we can stick those in from the end. And I threw that one down. So you can stick these in. The holes are pre-drilled in the end of most of these frames. So we'll stick that in the end. And when we do that, we want to split that foundation with that pin so that the pin goes on either side of that foundation. So sometimes that hole's a little bit small and you have to drill them out a little bit. It's supposed to be the right size, and sometimes you have to kind of spread those pins just a little bit. They don't want to cooperate. They want to wad the foundation up. So we'll try that again. And we'll stick that in there. Just like so. And now that pin is on this and on the other side. And on a deep frame, you can put a couple of those pins in. You don't have to fill every hole, but you can put a couple of those in, and it'll straighten that foundation out until the bees draw the comb on it. But these little frame pins work really good, and they're really cheap, and they're pretty quick and easy to install, as opposed to doing the full wiring. You know, the wiring is, of course, the best method to using wax foundation. You would completely wire the comb, but you know, after that first use, after the bees get the comb drawn out on, the frames will be nice and strong anyway. So I hope that's helpful. We showed you how to put in a couple different kinds of foundation there. So please, questions if you have any, throw those in the comment section. Subscribe to our channel and share if you will. And hopefully some more videos like this to come. Thank you for watching.